Welcome to Rich Tribe. So let's be real. Have you ever started a brand new budget, all fired up, only to have it completely fall apart within a few weeks? Yeah, you're not alone. That whole cycle of trying, failing, and then feeling guilty about it is super common. But what if I told you the problem isn't your willpower? What if the whole system is rigged against you from the start? Today, we're going to break down why your budget keeps failing and, more importantly, how to build one that actually sticks.
This quote from Steve Rode, man, it just hits, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that feeling. We create these budgets based on the person we wish we were, not the person we actually are. And instead of being a helpful tool, they just end up being this document that makes us feel bad about ourselves. The good news, once you understand why they don't work, you can finally build a system that does.
So, does this little dance look familiar? You start with all of the best intentions, right? You make a perfect color coded spreadsheet. But pretty soon, that plan feels less like a tool and more like a cage. It's just too tight. So you make one tiny exception, which then kind of snowballs. Then the guilt kicks in, you feel like a failure, and you just ditch the whole thing. That is until the financial stress gets to be too much and you find yourself right back at square one, starting the whole frustrating cycle all over again.
And here's why that loop is so common. It really boils down to these four things. One, traditional budgets feel like a financial starvation diet. They just suck all the fun out of life. Two, they're based on pure guesswork, not reality. We put down what we think we should spend, not what our bank statements from the last 3 months prove we actually spend. Three, they act like every month is identical, which is just not true. Your December spending is never going to look like your April spending. And finally, just tracking where your money went isn't a plan. That's an autopsy. A real plan tells your money where to go before you spend it.
Okay, so let's get to the real heart of it. The problem isn't your spreadsheet. It's not your lack of self-discipline. The core issue is that your own brain is actively fighting against your budget. We're trying to use a logical tool to control a deeply emotional biological impulse. And you know what? That is a fight you are literally hardwired to lose. Let me show you what I mean. This is where things get really fascinating. Scientists have discovered something they call the budget paradox. It's basically the old don't think of a pink elephant trick, but for your bank account. The moment you set a strict limit on something, like I'm only spending $50 on coffee this month, your brain becomes obsessed with it. It focuses all its attention on that one thing, which paradoxically makes you more likely to spend in that exact category. And look, this isn't just a fun theory. We've got the data. A study found that people who set these strict budgets for certain categories actually spent, on average, $30 more in those categories than people who didn't budget for them at all. Think about that for a second. The very tool you're using to control your spending could be causing you to spend more. It's wild. So, why on earth does this happen? Well, it's all about brain chemistry. When you're shopping, that big pleasure hit, that rush of the reward chemical dopamine, it doesn't actually happen when you get the thing. It happens in the moments before, when you're browsing, when you click add to cart, during that sweet, sweet anticipation. Your budget, which tries to ask, can I afford this at the last second, is showing up way too late to the party. Your brain already got its reward. The Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman gave us the perfect way to understand this. He talks about two systems in our brain. System one is our fast, emotional, gut reaction brain. It's the part that sees a sale sign and feels that instant I need it urge. System two is our slow, logical, calculating brain, the one that patiently sits down to make a budget. So every time you try to stick to that budget, you're asking your slow, logical planner to wrestle the steering wheel away from your emotional, impulsive spender. The calculator just can't compete with the thrill of the ride. So if these strict, rigid rules are basically designed to fail, what's the answer? Do we just give up? Not at all. The solution starts with a really simple but powerful shift. We move from trying to have rigid control to just practicing mindful awareness. And check this out. This might be one of the most powerful stats in all of personal finance. Study after study has shown that when people simply track where their money is going, with no rules, no goals, no restrictions, they naturally cut their spending by about 10%. Why? It's because awareness breaks the autopilot. When you actually have to write down that you spent $7 on that latte, it forces a conscious choice where there used to be an unconscious habit. A really great way to practice this awareness is with the Japanese method called kakebo. You can think of it like slow budgeting. It's really just a form of journaling that makes you reflect. At the start of the month, you just sit down and answer these 4 simple questions. This whole process swaps out guilt for clarity, and it helps you make sure your spending actually lines up with what you care about. It turns money management into a mindful practice instead of a miserable chore. Okay, So awareness is an awesome first step. But maybe you're thinking, I still want some structure, some guardrails. If you're looking for that balance without getting totally bogged down in details, the 50-30-20 framework is an amazing place to start. It's less about restriction and more about getting your priorities in order.
Here's how simple it is. You take your after-tax income and you split it into 3 buckets. A maximum of 50% goes to your needs. These are the non-negotiables, like your rents, utilities, groceries, and minimum debt payments. Then 30% is for your wants. This is the fun stuff, hobbies, going out to eat, you name it. And finally, and this is crucial, at least 20% goes towards savings and paying off extra debt. It's a guide, not a prison. So which way should you go? Well, if you're just starting out or you're someone who gets totally overwhelmed by tiny details, the 50-30-20 rule is a fantastic, simple guide. But if you have a really specific, aggressive goal, like paying off a bunch of debt as fast as possible, then it might be time for a more hands-on approach. And that brings us to our second big framework, zero-based budgeting. Now, I know the name sounds a little intense, but the idea behind it is actually really simple and empowering. It's all about being intentional with every single dollar you make.
The formula looks like this. Income minus expenses equals 0. Now, this does not mean you should have $0 in your bank account at the end of the month. That would be terrifying. All it means is that you have $0 left unassigned. Every single dollar that comes in gets a job, whether that job is paying rent, buying food, going into savings, or even being set aside for fun. Nothing is left to just vanish into thin air. Let's just walk through a quick example to make it real. Let's say you take home $4,000 a month. You list out all of your expenses, rent, bills, savings goals, even a little buffer for unexpected stuff. After you've assigned all that, you see you've got $220 left over. Now, in the old way, that money would probably just disappear. But with a zero-based budget, you give that $220 a specific job. Maybe it goes straight to your credit card debt this month. Maybe it goes into a vacation fund. The point is, you decide. You are in control. Now, choosing a system is a huge step, but the real magic comes in making that system last. Before we dive into how to build a budget that actually sticks for the long haul, if you're getting value out of this, please take a second to subscribe to the Rich Tribe channel, like this explainer, comment with your own stories, and share it with someone who might need to hear this. All right, so you've picked a new approach that works with your brain instead of against it. Awesome. But how do you make sure you don't fall back into that old, frustrating failure loop? You do it by treating your plan like a living, breathing document, not something carved in stone. It needs to be flexible enough to bend with your real life. So, how do you make it stick? It's all about a few simple, sustainable habits. First, just check in for 10 minutes once a week. That's it. See how things are going. Did your grocery bill come in higher than expected? No big deal, just adjust. It's not failure, it's life. Always build in a small buffer for all the little things you forgot. And automate your savings. Pay yourself first isn't just a cliche, it works. Have that money sent to savings the day you get paid. And maybe the most important thing here, focus on progress, not perfection. You will mess up. It's fine. Just get back on track. And please, for the love of everything, include fun money. A budget with no room for joy is a budget that is absolutely doomed to fail. At the end of the day, a good spending plan isn't about restriction. It's about intention. It's about transforming your money from this constant source of stress into the most powerful tool you have for building the life you actually want. So, the question I want to leave you with is this. Right now, is your money actively building your rich life, or is it just disappearing? The choice, as always, is yours.